My talk is going to be around the art of prompt engineering for AI conversations, and it's going to be more towards, how we can draft prompts that actually can give us the results of desire that we aim for. So without further ado, let's get started. So as you can see from this meme, so the guy wanted chips with cheese. Well, he ordered chips with cheese, but as you can see, they give him, like French fries and then cheese on the side. So, like he said, he actually got, what he asked for, but obviously that wasn't what he desired. So, and this like happens, well, almost approximately all the time in communication between humans. Like we usually, kind of like strike a conversation and then we're expecting something from someone else, and then we end up getting a completely different result. And this is like has a huge impact on businesses, especially. So if you like look at their budget, you will see that they're investing like a lot of money when it comes to soft skills, and communication is practically what soft skills most of the time means. Because like most of the things that are related to decision making, or kind of like investment and all of that, are related to how we're going to communicate what we have to the stakeholders, and then obviously to our users or clients for general businesses. That is why I choose to, as a start, to introduce what communication is, just so you guys can see actually the actual relationship between communication, the one that happens between humans and humans, and then prompt engineering that happens between humans and obviously artificial intelligence. So in simple words, communication is a process where we human beings share, exchanging information between each other. Like it might be through signs, symbols, or most of the time obviously is going to be around our body language, and then what we say through voice, and then sometimes what we write or try to express in any way. So usually why we're communicating always has a goal, right? So even like if you're complaining to someone or sharing your burdens, what you want to do is, from your case, it is to distress yourself. And so usually what we want to really look into and have like a very high, pay very highly specific attention to is how we communicate. And so let us just quite quickly see what are the best practices. So the first best practice is to be an attentive listener. So what do we exactly mean by being an attentive listener? Because that is really different from just listening. So usually when you're listening, you're just taking in information, right? And then when you're being an attentive listener, you're actually not only listening for the information, but you're actually looking for other information that may be hidden, in the way a person speaks, like how they, for example, move their hands, how they're, like their facial expression and all of that. And so you're looking for hidden messages. So that is why one of the best key practices is to listen with full attention. The second one is we're requested to be concrete and clear. That means, we need to be like, if you're going to tell someone about something, you better have it. It will be like best practice if you can have a very recent use case or something that happened that is very recent that you can actually give them as a story and be as clear as possible. That means like if your desire is to, for example, communicate that something happened to someone, then be very clear about who it happened to, when, how, and why. So be precise and unambiguous. There is no need for hidden messages in a good communication. Completeness. Well, I'm not sure if this happens to you guys, but this happens to me a lot. Like, especially because I got used to, being surrounded by people that kind of like understand how I work and kind of like understand how I am. So it's very easy for me to sometimes not complete my words. And when I am, with people who aren't used to my style, so they kind of don't understand what I'm trying to say, and I'm usually always puzzled why. So please, when you're beginning a sentence, make sure that you complete it, because not everyone knows you or understand where you're coming from. Give and receive feedback. And this is like one of the most important practices. In anything in life, if we want to improve, what we need to do is to receive feedback. We need to understand where are our weaknesses, where are our strengths, so we can improve on both sides. Now let's see how prompt engineering is very similar to communication. So first things first, what is prompt engineering? So prompt engineering is simply another way for humans to communicate what they need to the AI. So that's like just a set of actual instructions or sometimes queries that we call prompts. So why do we kind of call it prompts? So prompts is like a nudge, right? And usually when we use the word nudge, that means that we want whatever we're going to apply that nudge to, like to be going somewhere or doing something specific. So we want a specific desired outcome. And so that's why we usually use prompts. So prompts are just like us, human beings, using text or any form of language to interact with the AI, artificial intelligence algorithms, so they can give us a certain desired outcome. And AI here is actually like referring to generative AI and more specifically large language models. But obviously, like if any kind of models, pop up after large language models and use prompt engineering, obviously we'll be following the same best practices. So first things first, what we want to do in this case, and as you can see, it is very relatable to communication, we need to be specific. So what do we want from this AI, right? What is the outcome we want to reach from our conversation with it? Second is to keep it concise. It's better if we can, avoid overly long prompts, because sometimes, like even in communication, right? Whenever you feel like you have over going over a certain limit of words, if we might say that, if we lengthen the discussion, usually what happens is that we lose other people's attention. And so we want to keep it usually short. And that is true for the AI. Although for the AI, you won't lose its attention, you will actually make it confused. So be contextually aware. It's like in language, usually like sometimes you might have one word that means a lot of things, right? Especially like this is true for complicated languages like Arabic, Chinese, like one word can have so many meanings that sometimes it's really confusing. And so how do we, how do we figure out the difference? It's depending on the context, and usually the context comes direct from the whole sentence, and obviously from a lot of perspectives. And that's why we need to incorporate relevant context inside the prompt that we're drafting. Now, the last one, which is just the same as the last one in communication, which is to test and iterate, where we in humans, we give and receive feedback. For AI, you can actually do that. You can give it feedback, you can tell it is wrong, or for example, you can tell it's wrong in here, it can improve this and improve that. So that's why actually one of the things that you can do is tell the AI feedback. And also for you, what you need to remember is that if you want to get better at something, at anything, you need to experiment and evaluate what you're doing. And that's true for prompts as well. Because most of the time, even like if I share with all of you guys like how to do it, it's still going to take a lot of time for all of us to master this prompt engineering thing. So let's dive into examples. So let's just take the first prompt. So I actually put two kind of examples. We will be checking text-to-text examples, and then we'll be checking text-to-image examples. That means we will be, here we're just going to be writing the prompt, and then we're going to expect an output as text, and then we'll be expecting an output as image. So let's check out the first example. So as you can see here, I asked so this is Bard. Bard is like the Google LLM. So you can obviously use ChatGPT. kind of react the same way, even though one of them like has a strength in it. It's like from my observation, I feel that Bard is stronger when it comes to writing, good essays, like very good at things that language based, and then ChatGPT is more like good at things like analysis and all of that. Sorry. So the first prompt here is like, I want to learn Python language. So as you can see, it is very broad, right? It's not specific. I'm just telling it I want to learn it. So the answer it's giving me on my right is obviously going to be very generic. So it's telling me, it's introducing what Python is, and then it's telling me, where I can find good resources, how I can, start learning, and all of that. Now let's be more specific. Now I'm telling it I'm actually a beginner, so it knows what is my level, and that is really important. So it knows what type of, courses it can recommend to me. So I'm telling it I'm a beginner at programming and would like to learn Python. I'm telling it what is the best way I'm learning. So I tell it I learn best through short videos with small exercises with solutions, and that's really important for me. So just me some free resources to check. So do I want it free? Do I want it paid? Obviously, that makes the difference as well. So as you can see, it is giving me way more details. So it's telling me, for example, Read Python had Python tutorials and courses, and it has a crash course on Python that has short videos with a quiz to test our understanding, and then it's giving me other suggestions in case those don't work out. And one of the things you can do in this prompt, you can even ask it to kind of rank these suggestions so what is the best, and just perhaps go with that if that's the idea. So let's check out the text to image approach, and that's kind of my favorite, and also not really my favorite because it takes more time to yield results in contrast with the text one. So the first prompt says, sticker of artificial intelligence, gender, women. By the way, here I'm using Leonardo AI, and that's like a very cool, free AI image generation tool. But you can definitely use Midjourney or any of the latest, generative AI solutions out there. You can also use Stable Diffusion and Dietary if you heard of it. So as you can see here, it's still, my request is very broad. I want a sticker, fine. It's obviously, give me the thing in white and then, surrounded by things. And I said I want gender women, so it is indeed providing a women. I feel like the first sticker is, more relatable, the one I want. But the second one, not so much, as you can see, is giving me, two women's, and then one looks like the requested demand, but then the first one not really. So let us be more specific now. So I requested it this time to give me, I added more details, so that is lovely. Sparkly colors. So I don't want mundane, normal, typical colors. I want a more colorful version. I want it to be like a sketch so that it has more of a feeling of an actual sticker. I want to have contours to make it easier to actually print. I want it to be a vector once again. This is to make it easier to print. And then I am very specific about the fact that I want it to be on a white background and I want it to be detailed. So as you can see, it provided me better results simply because I became more specific and precise. Now let's check out prompt engineering techniques because there are different ones. And although these are best used in text, prompts, like for a text desired output, but for images, if you want to get better at them, I suggest you actually understand how we usually take pictures and apply that to the actual prompt. So let's check out the first example. What we call, so here I'm giving you like only one example of the n-shot thing, so the zero-shot one, but usually they are like, like it can be zero-shot, which means no examples. I'm going to explain that in a while. Or it can be like several examples, which is like, let's say, for example, two-shot, that means two examples. So what is zero-shot first? So zero-shot is when you're actually asking the language model a question, or you can give it a task, but you don't provide any examples. So if we say one shot, you will be providing it with one example. If we say two, obviously you're going to provide it with two examples. But for zero, you're providing zero examples. So let's check out these. So here, so in all of the techniques that we're going to see, what I used was, I want to learn, public speaking. Or you can even like make it improve your public speaking skills, but the aim was to learn public speaking. So as you can see, when I used the zero shot, so here it's the prompt is, what are some tips for improving public speaking skills? It gave me very general and broad answers. So the first thing was, know your audience, prepare, and then like you can check out all the answers in the notebook I'll be sharing with you. Sorry for the noise. So there is also the chain of thought prompting. So what happens with chain of thought prompting is that what we want the large language model is, we want to remember that we want it to give us a desired output, right? So here what we do is like, we break down a certain task in, let's say, for example, we have some kind of things we want the AI model to actually remember or to pay attention to. So you can break down a very complex task into either a sequence of simpler questions, or you can use just general steps. This is like this will be like, you could use this, for example, if you're trying to draw a diagram, right? Or if you're trying to explain a really difficult subject, and you're trying to explain it, for example, to someone else, so you can kind of direct it towards where you want the explanation to go and what you wanted to highlight. So the example prompt will be something like, let's take step by step about how to improve public speaking skills. So the first question is around the different aspects of public speaking. Second one is requesting it to give some specific things we can do to improve each of these aspects. So we are linking it to the first question. And then we are requesting it to give us some common challenges that people might face while giving speeches and how we can overcome them. And in the answer, it actually tackled every question alone, and then obviously it built on top of previous questions. Now let's check out the third aspect, which is generated knowledge prompting. So generated knowledge prompting is practically just you asking the AI to use general knowledge that might be from its what it was trained on, the data it was trained on, or actually, let's say, for example, you have a really cool book you really like and you would like to use it as material, a set of books. It might be like a YouTube video, it might be a website, it might be an author. So here the guess is that you're actually drawing answer from very specific, like knowledge out there, general knowledge out there. So here, like, for example, we can take this prompt, like generate a speech outline for a 5-minute speech on the topic of the importance of public speaking skills. So here, like the importance of public speaking skills, it can, kind of draw that from its, all the data it has been trained on. And remember that all of these AI tools, generative AI tools, have been trained on public data sets. Okay, let me rephrase that. Not public data sets, because they might have been private. They were trained on the internet. That means like practically all of the web data. So for example, here it gave us a speech outline. As you can see, it is really very specific around, the topic, the audience, the purpose, and all of that. Simply because we were specific in our demand as well. Now let's check out the last one, which is actually self-consistency. So practically what this means is just that we're actually requesting, we are nudging the model towards very specific outcome, but here we're like consistent with what we're asking it, and we are requesting for it to be consistent as well in its answer. And usually consistency only means that we're building one answer on top of the other while keeping some kind of logic going on. So let's see this example. So the prompt is something like, write a speech about the importance of public speaking skills that is consistent with the following principles. So for example here, what you can do for this is like, it will be really useful if, let's say, for example, you're doing this is like in the business, you're doing some kind of branding, right? You have a brand, or, for example, for us human beings, we have a set of values we usually follow, either consciously or unconsciously. So let's say, for example, you're a writer and you want it to help you write, and then you have some kind of values, or you have some kind of set of, like principles you always abide by. So you could like kind of tailor it and request it to always respect those principles. If it's a branding, you can, you can let it know what are the values of the branding, and then, what your target market is interested in and how you want to sound like to them, to be able to always replicate that in all of your writings or content creation. So here the principles are something like, public speaking is an essential skill for success in many different fields. So these are like you can think of them like set of, obviously they said a set of principles or beliefs for this person who is, giving this example. So public speaking can help you build confidence, improve your communication skills, and make a positive impact on the world. And then there are many different ways to improve your public speaking skills, and there's no one-fits-all approach. And then, seeing as here the request was to help write a speech, it wrote the speech around into that consistency. As you can see, the first thing it says is succeed in school and work, and then it says in school, public speaking skills can help you to give presentations. So this is very in sync with the fact that public speaking is an essential skill for success in many different fields. Now let's practice. This is Leonardo AI, by the way, and you can just visit this website. The notebook has all examples, so you can check all of them out here. I left more examples than I did in the presentation so that you ladies can actually relate to it. So as you can see, and I also even added how you can swap faces if you wish to, because that's how these days people are using AI to kind of generate, photo, provide pictures and stuff like that. So play around with it and see what you can come up with. So let me just get started on the programming side. So I have been talking a lot and it has only been concept. Now let us dive more deeper into the actual programming. So this notebook here, this part of getting started with the Vertex AI, Palm API, and Python SDK, it can be run here in Colab, or you can actually, open it in Vertex AI Workbench and then run it. Or you can just go around it, one of their labs that has this, set of instructions, and obviously in a Cloud Skills Boost lab, usually they give you all the resources, and so you don't need to use your own credits. But here, seeing as we're running it in a Colab, we will need to use Vertex AI credentials. So in this, in this notebook, you will be you will find you will find more details than what I have been talking about, especially when it comes to the prompting side, and all types of tips and tricks when it comes to how you can take the best out of them, but more in a programmatical way, not just in a pragmatical way. So first things first, what is the Palm API? So the Palm API is just the model that has been trained on the internet for Google when it comes to text and how to generate text. So if you want to generate text and you want to use a Google API, you will be using Palm. And the Vertex AI is actually just the platform where that has a lot of components, like from end to end. That means from data collection to deployment of the models, monitoring, and all the ML stuff that is available in one platform, which is Vertex AI, and it has all of the AI ecosystem you can think of, and you might want to check it out if you have, if you're interested to kind of, especially if you need to use like an all-encompassing solution that has like almost anything related to AI. You can train models either like your own models, which is custom, or you can use AutoML or stuff like that. So they have what we call Generative AI Studio that you can check out as well. So what Generative AI Studio allows you to do, it allows you actually to it's like kind of Bard, but it has obviously other, other examples. Like it can, like very specific examples, like for one for chat, and they have what we call one for images, but they haven't released it to the public yet. It's only open to trusted testers, so you can check all of these things out and like just play around. So the Generative AI Studio is just for you to try these things, and then obviously when you want to move on to the programmatical side, you will have to use the APIs. All right. So let me just quickly introduce you to how you can use these things, right? So first things first, because we will be using the Vertex AI SDK, we will be installing it first. So we are installing it through the Google Cloud AI platform. After that, so for this one, if you're running it inside the Vertex AI Workbench or inside the lab, that especially if you're using the Cloud Skills Boost Generative AI lab, you can just like increment all of this section and run it. But because we're running in Colab, this is the section that we'll be running. So we're just going to be, logging in using our own user account in Gmail user account, and that's like obviously just mine, for example. So we can have access to Drive. So we can have access to Colab. So for the Vertex AI Palm API, it has several models. So what the Google team did was that they trained every model for a specific task to make it easier to actually, kind of have targeted out information out of these models. And they can be, tailored to the specific use cases that we need for them. So there is like one for text, there is one for chat, and then there is one for text embedding. So practically what we mean by embedding is just a representation of the data, right? In a vectorial form, that is like in a kind of a vector, so how it is, plotted in space and all of that. So you can think of it like a compression kind of approach of the data. So here what we have is that, let's say, for example, we have the Bison model. So Bison is like actually it's the most favored. Like that's the one I always see them using in all of their examples. And so as you can see here, this is like the logic on how you can call out these models. So you have a use case, as you can see, text, chat, or text embedding. Then you have the model size. So Bison, I think, is the most suitable because it's kind of very lightweight, and then obviously it has practically almost all of the use cases. So it's better to call it out. But I think if you want like a model that has broader knowledge and all of that, I believe you would have to call out a way more bigger model. And usually when you say bigger model, what do we mean? We actually mean we actually need more, computational resources. And then we have what we call the version number, right? So that might mean, like, for example, here 001, that might actually mean just something around, let's say, for example, this is like the first version, and then there will be like other versions that will be trained on further data, especially like, for example, for Heath or Bard, when you're interacting with it, it's not only, it's not only giving you answers, it's actually learning from the way you're interacting with it as well. So for example, they might use this data to create Bison 2 or something like that. So as you can see here, so they said Bison is like the best in terms of capability and cause. And they have another model called Gecko, which is actually the smallest and cheapest made for simple tasks, model for simple tasks. So as I said, usually they use Bison in almost like all of the examples available out there. So you can use text Bison when you're actually interacting, like with where we were interacting with Bard, in a way that you have specific tasks you want it to do, and then you actually give it these tasks to do for you. But if you want, for example, to interact and then have conversation back and forth, what you might want to use better is to use chat Bison, and that's usually like used for conversational AI, so to build chatbots or customer support and stuff like that. And then you have text embedding, and usually we use these when we want to store data in a compressed format, an easier to use version, especially when it comes to model training. And that's usually what you will want to do if you're building either conversational AI models or simple text solutions, softwares, because you will want to, like what they're doing with Bard, to actually train these models further on your users' incoming data. Or obviously, if you're using it for yourself, to train it on more further use cases so that it learns your style, your tone, and all of that. So the first things to do to be able to use the API is obviously to get the project ID. And you can get this from the Vertex AI platform, which is in GCP or Google Cloud Platform. You initialize it with the project ID, and then obviously from which data center you want to be able to use, or cloud service you want to use from which region. So they always actually suggest using the region that is closest to you, so that it can be easier to kind of quickly get responses, especially because of Wi-Fi. So in here we will be needing Panda, so we're importing it. We will be needing Seaboard for plotting. That's like the last plot. And then, IPython just for displays, like it's for images. And then metrics, because they will be using cost and similarity, and this is going to be towards the embedding examples. And then they will, because obviously we're using, the PALM API, we will need to, and we're using like its specific tasks, so we will need to import all of them as well. So we're importing the chat model for conversational AI, input, output, text pair, and then we have the text embedding model and text generation model. So let's start with the text generation model. What can you do with this? So you can, for example, use it to perform classification, sentiment analysis, negative or positive review for a movie or something like that. Entity extraction, let's say, for example, you're writing a text that it has like location, let's say, for example, Morocco, and then you have Casablanca. Both of these are entities, or obviously if it's people and all of that, if you want to be able to extract these things from your user's text. So you can also use extractive question answering. So that is like, for example, if you have, let's say, for example, we have been interacting with Bard in a question answering kind of way, for example, like where is Tower Eiffel, something like that. Summarization, and this is like really helpful when you have very long text and you don't have much time. And you can even build solutions that can be added on to your emails, for example. If you have a lot of emails that comes to to you in a streamlined fashion, you can use it to just ask it to go all through your emails and then give you only most important information that you need to get out of it using summarization. You can use it to rewrite text in a different style. And this is really pretty cool because not everyone is a writer. And so it's really helpful. I actually use it sometimes for my writing as well, especially when it comes to when I'm applying for, for, let's say, for example, a job or an opportunity and something like that. I usually use it to help me, kind of rewrite my own writing, because sometimes whatever I write sometimes sounds really off to me. So I really like having another, I guess, another AI to help me rewrite, and improve my text, my content writing skills. So then you can use it for ad copy generation. So this is like more in relation with, stuff that are related to real copyright, or obviously we can call them also content creation, but for marketing use cases. And then you can use it for concept ideation. Let's say, for example, you're doing brainstorming, or you're trying to solve a problem, or you're trying to come up perhaps with a startup name or something cool like that. You can use it to help you brainstorm and find some really cool suggestions. So you can also use it for concept simplification. So the favorite prompt is something like this: explain X, let's say, for example, artificial intelligence as if I am 5. This is usually like what most people use as a prompt to explain a concept. But please remember that when it comes to, this kind of prompt skills, it all depends actually on your domain knowledge. The more you know about something, the easier it will be for you to ask it the right question to provide you the right answer. So for example, I saw someone actually getting creative around this, concept simplification thing, where he has like several models on how you can explain something. So obviously, throughout humans history, we have had several schools. Schools are like a school of thought. So they're like a different bunch of scientists agreeing on the same thing, and then they form a school. So they have like their own way of explaining things. So if, let's say, for example, if you know a specific way and you prefer that, you can obviously request from the AI model to actually, or for example, Bard, ChatGPT, whatever you name it, to explain what you want to understand using that preferred way of yours. So let's load the model. So here we're going to be using text as we'll be using text generation model at first. So remember that right now we're using Bison with version 1. And obviously we're going to, load the from pre-trained version. So what do we mean by pre-trained? It means that the model has already been trained on the data, and we're just, we're just calling it to do prediction. And here prediction is just like answering our questions. So here it's just like quickly telling you about prompt design, which is already like explained all of these to you guys previously. So it's the same thing. So here is like the first example. So here you're giving it a prompt. You can directly feed it obviously to the method, but let's just do it properly. So you have the prompt. For example, here the prompt is, what is a large language model? And then we're going to get a response from the model, which is obviously, as you can see, it's this one. A large language model is a type of artificial intelligence, etc. And then how do we get it? Like, what do we need to use to get this answer? So we're going to use the generation model we already defined here, which is just the text generation model that's from pre-trained method. And then we're going to use the predict method of this actual instance. And because usually, this, I'm not sure if this reminds you of the same, but it reminds me very much of web scraping, where you need to ask it for the specific text and not something else. So you will need to do this for this API as well. Then actually what they're giving us here, just more, examples. So I want to highlight something that I didn't mention in the slides, and that's what we call prompt templates. So what does prompt templates mean? So practically it's just a uniform way of how you can kind of structure a prompt. Let's say, for example, you have been in, you have had a task you wanted to do. Let's say you want to explain a concept, or let's pick this actual example. So here you have been kind of trying different prompts on how you can get the top 10 trends in a certain industry. And then, you have been playing around a lot of prompts, and let's say you come up with the best prompt. It works everywhere, anywhere, and it's always giving you the best examples, you need. And so what you might want to do is actually, have this prompt as a, build a template out of this prompt. And it's as easy or complicated as actually leaving, the generic text that need to be repeated, and then have a variable. So the variable here, what is going to be changed is just my industry, right? So for example, here, my industry is tech. We're using the same thing as we did before, response generation model.predict method. We're giving it the prompt. We're just using the app so we can kind of format our text to be able to change this my industry with the tech industry, with the tech one. So here, for example, so this is a template. Why? Because we have something that we only one thing, or you can have obviously a number of ones that, let's call them variable, that you can change, or you can think of them parameters that you can actually change. And this is really a very good practical way, and it's like kind of best practices for you, so you can reuse your own prompts, or perhaps you can sell them to other people to use. Especially, well, why sell them? Because usually prompts are very hard to make, especially when I'm talking about very good prompts that actually gives the results you're expecting out of them. So that's why if you check out recent job lists, one of the things you will be finding is what we call prompt engineers, and that's like yet another communication thing, but it's obviously from a human to AI aspect. And they're getting really paid really well. I mean, it's reasonable, seeing as they have to, do a lot of iterations and use a lot of their, knowledge, so they can actually get you the best prompt, so you can get the best answer. And remember that we can use all of these things from a business perspective, right? And then let's say, for example, I want to draft a sales pitch. Let's say I'm selling, I don't know, eyeglasses or something like that, and I want like the perfect pitch so that the clients or the prospects I'm discuss selling my offer to can actually get hooked, as in interested in the product, which is the eyeglasses, and so they can buy them. And that's usually actually depends on your pitch, like how you're actually pitching or how you're selling them the product. So this is like just one of the very few examples on how you can use prompt engineering. So usually for us, for example, developers, we can build really cool solutions like Leonardo.ai or Bard or stuff like that can generate a bunch of money to us, the builders, hopefully, and then obviously to the users really great values. It can help them, like, instead of having to take hours and hours to generate, like, for example, let's say to write a book, they can take like 1 week or something like that. Now let's check out the model parameters. So these are actually not just parameters where it's only for the model, but like especially for temperature, and maximum output tokens. These are really very similar, and you can, especially for temperature, you can definitely use it inside every kind of model. Sorry. So for example, you can use it in ChatGPT, and then you can use it in Bard or any kind of model. So let me just get specific around, for example, what temperature is. So temperature is just a way to say how much layout, how much like way out are you like giving the model to, how much free expression are you giving to this model. So if you want it to be creative and come up with crazy ideas, sometimes some really weird known sounds, you can just increase the temperature. So temperature goes from 0 to 1 as is provided here. And so usually I do recommend not to go over 0.4, especially if you actually want it to still make sense. Like there is a little tiny bit of creativity, but still makes sense. So please only go with 0.4. Otherwise, if you want to go crazy, then please increase that the parameter. But be careful that sometimes it's going to be going so out of context that it might give you some like really some really nonsense, like stuff that won't make sense to anyone, even to the fiction people. So be careful of that. So let's talk about maximum output tokens. So I'm not sure if you have previously read about large language models. These are the AI that we use to generate text, or for images we have Stable Diffusion. So these models are actually usually, so what they do is that they're trained, so let's take the text example. They're usually trained on what we call tokens. So token, what is a token? So a token is like, let's say for example you have a sentence. Let's say, where are you going, for example, is the sentence. So, and this is actually divergent from one model to another, and obviously this is like kind of proprietary approaches. So I'm just giving you an example. So where, for example, in this case will be a token, and then R is another token, U is another token, going is another token. Sorry, that changed quite abruptly. So each one of them is actually a token. So practically what a token is, you can think of it like a breakdown of a sentence into word by word. But it's way more complicated, especially if the model you're using has its own approach. So sometimes, for example, what the people training the model choose to do is to choose the actual root of the word. So let's say, for example, you have talking, the root of the word will be talk. Right? So they would, like, for example, take that as a token and discard everything else. So practically here, why you need to remember this, it is because this is what is going to be putting a limit to how much text you can generate, like how much you can actually answer your user, or yourself, if you're building a solution for yourself. So this is like, usually they have a maximum number of tokens. That means for a sentence, so it can go like the model that you're requesting starts from or prompting cannot go beyond that limit. So always keep that in mind. So if you wanted to go over that limit, I think you can force it to do that. There are always ways to force things to happen. So you can definitely force it, but like I would recommend not to do that, because you would be billed more. But because, by the way, they actually bill you by the tokens. So how much tokens you actually generate, a model generates when answering your requests, is how much you will be billed per request. So the top P and top K are just another model proprietary stuff that are related to the that are related to the temperature, related to the creative responses. So practically there is just another mechanism to, kind of figure out a way to generate the next word. And that's like sometimes it can like generate the next right word, most logical or has the highest probability. Sometimes it can actually generate a mix of the different probabilities out there. Anyway, if you guys are actually confused, you can just ignore these. They're not really very helpful when you're designing your own prompts. The only thing you need to remember is that if you increase their value, you're going to increase the creativity, free speech thing. If you're keeping them at a certain, level, they actually like give you some suggestions, and they actually even show you when you're changing these parameters what happens. So you can check all of these examples here. Let me just go to let me just go to the other examples that are different so we can still have time. So these are just like examples for this, the top K, top P, and then temperature values. Let's check the chat one. This is like way more cooler. So to use the chat model, the only thing we need to do is usually call out the instance of chat instance from the chat model class, and then use the from pre-trained version to actually, like kind of pick the model that we need. And then, we just use the start chat method. And then in the chat instance from the chat model class, we just use the send message option to send our query or to start the chat with the AI model. And then to get a response. So actually, like when you're sending it the message, it is directly giving you the answer as the response. Now, if you want to use this, further ahead, you can obviously use all the stuff that we have learned about, and you can give it examples. So let's say, for example, you wanted to answer in a specific way. So give it some examples, some starter conversation, if we want to call them. So you can also give it the context. Remember, that's really important for any kind of conversation, even with the AI. So here, as you can see, they are giving it context, which is, for example, here, my name is Ned, you are my personal assistant. So practically the context is what you want it to be able to do and in what setting. So for here, they're saying my favorite movies are, and then, that's what they're giving it. So as examples, they're providing it something like, who do you work for as an input text, and then as an output text, which is what you would expect it to answer. I work for Ned, for example. Why? Because in context, he said, my name is Ned, you are my personal assistant. So obviously he's working. This AI is working for Ned. What does Ned like? So what do I like? Ned likes to watch Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. So Ned likes watching movies. So the temperature here they have gone for is 0 to 3. And then the maximum output tokens is 200, which means that the model cannot sound more than 200 in a sentence. And then the top P, obviously, and top K are like 0 to 8 and 40. So we do want some kind of creativity, but only around like like the next word and not exactly the whole text. Now let's check out the embedding. Remember what I told you about the embedding? Usually we use embedding for to store the data in a compressed way. And when you store data in compressed ways, you can use it for different settings. So for example, you can use it to do some kind of semantic search. So you can, kind of like, let's say for the internet, let's say for Google, like when you're searching for something, there's like thousands and thousands of answers. And so how does it know to rank it, to rank the best one that you might likely want as first? Well, it does semantic search. And then obviously, I think they usually, if I remember correctly, they might be using cosine similarity to find like the best one in relation to prompt, which is the request, which is the search that you're doing. So all the available answers, they're calculating them according similarity with what you want, which is like the search request. So we can use it for recommendation, product recommendations in e-commerce or any kind of recommendation. Let's say I want to know what are movies that are similar to Avengers or something like that. Then for classification, clustering, outlier detection, and like a bunch of other amazing applications. So how do we use this model? Again, we're just going to call the text embedding model class and use the from pre-trained, and obviously use. So here they're, which is really interesting, they're using actually Gecko, I guess because they want something lightweight, especially because embeddings do take a lot of time to be generated. Because remember, it's a way to kind of reduce the data weight, the data representation. So we might want something, especially if we're just testing, we might want something that is going to be, way faster. And then obviously, like we will be calling the instance, which we just defined, embedding model, and then using the get embeddings method, and then feed it the sentence, or let's say, for example, a couple of sentences, paragraphs, whatever, that we want to compress. And then we're, like kind of getting every embedding and then turning it into a vector. So it's like, I believe what is going to be turned into an embedding is going to be turned into an embedding, life is going to be turned into an embedding. So embedding is just like a bunch of numbers that mean something. And now they're doing it for a whole text, which is like, this can be called a paragraph, but I feel like it looks like, poem.
Well, Sara, again, thank you so much for this amazing session. We have a couple of questions in the chat. Maybe we can answer them.
Yes,
do you want me to say it out loud?
No, I can read them. So the first one is, what do you think about prompt engineering as a standalone career in the near future? Hello, Joanne. So first things first, it's already a standalone career in this future, which is now. So if you search for jobs right now, prompt engineering jobs, you can find them. And as I told you, that's like I think they get way better paid than actual developers. So yeah, you might want to check that out. But that might be have you ever heard of content writers or copywriters? So I believe that's going to be very similar to, kind of this job setting. So we will need a lot more out of these people. And so acquiring this kind of skill will be really helpful, for you, the person, because we all will be using AI in the future very frequently. And then obviously for you as a career, for your personal use and for you as a career. So I highly recommend anyone to actually I agree. Yeah, it's time for a career switch. But yeah, I recommend all of you ladies, without any doubt, to go learn how to talk to these AI stuff. And that's actually practically just learn prompt engineering. And pick one, because obviously it takes time to master. So pick either the text version or the image version as a start. But please remember that the image version is a bit way more harder than the actual text version. So as a start, I would request to get familiar with the interacting using text, to get textual input, and then go to the image one. And if you want to master the image one, just make sure that you understand all of, image principles, scaling, resolution, and stuff like that, camera settings. Yeah, it can get very wild. Let's see for the next one. I am working in a deep learning project. The topic is totally new for me. Do you think we can start a project in a new area with ChatGPT and prompt engineering skills? Yes, for sure. Valeria, do you mind like expanding on what you might perhaps like what kind of projects you're thinking of? So I can help you perhaps with resources or anything like that. Anyway, if you feel like this is too sensitive to share here, you can just reach out to me through my LinkedIn. Just type my full name and we can discuss and see how I can best help you with that. But for example, like using ChatGPT or any like all the Google stuff, you can definitely check out like Maker Suite. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool. Oh, it is a project with geographic database PyTorch. Oh, nice. Yeah, sure. Like you can definitely use that, but you would have to figure out how you can, let's say for example, you want to kind of like get some answers from the geographic database. You can use the text, the embedding version, so you can kind of like get a compressed version of the answers you might need, and then you can generate answers to any kind of queries someone might have about geographic database. Especially geographic databases are very challenging to read for people, especially people who aren't familiar with them. So that will be very helpful if you build a chat, conversational AI model that can, obviously you can just use ChatGPT and then tailor it to your project, fine tune it to your geographic database so that it can answer any question someone might have about your geographic database.
Android developer, I really got interested in prompt engineering too. I will definitely check that out.
That's awesome. Thank you. I'm really happy I got you interested in it.
And thank you again for doing this presentation with us, and also thanks everyone for joining. So hope to see you again somewhere else.
Sure. Thank you everyone. It was really great to do this talk for you ladies.